David Blakesley, and you are watching IGE Talks. This is the monthly grassroots, no budget, local activist, homegrown conversation, talk show, grab bag of items and information that is generated here in the Institute for Global Education in Grand Rapids, Michigan, on Welty Street Southeast, 1118 Welty, just on the street from the local Welty Theater. For friends and fans and followers of this show, it's been a few months, hasn't it? And I'm here to kind of welcome you back as we get our 2014 season started. See Chester walking in, our good friend and producer here, doing his thing, bringing us a fresh batch of goodies. It's been a couple months, like I say. Our last episode was back in November. Due to a variety of scheduling conflicts and holidays, and some harsh weather, and just the busyness of life, we've taken a couple months off our filming our monthly program. But we're happy to be back again tonight, and certainly glad that you're listening, whether it's on DVD, on YouTube, on the IGE Talks page, whatever format you use to access this program. We're glad to have you watching and listening. So let's sit back and get ready to do it all over again. As I'm thinking about this program, 2014 marks our 10th year of doing IGE Talks.
It's been that long?
It's been that long, yes. We haven't completed our 10th year. Our 10th year, or our first year started right after George W. Bush was elected to his second term. And so we've been through nearly a decade of all the social events and global upheaval and crisis and calamity and those little sparks of hope that keep us moving forward. And so we're here to talk about what's going on in the world around us. For first-time viewers, we talk about local issues, we talk about global issues and everything in between. Sometimes it's newsworthy headlines, topics of the day, sometimes it's bigger subjects that may not be things that you're going to hear from the mainstream media or even an alternative media, but we're going to talk about things that we feel are important and relevant to the lives that we lead. So tonight, our topic is called Taking Back the Streets. And it's going to be a program on a topic we've covered in the past, the effort called Move to Amend. A move to alter the United States Constitution that kind of restores, I think, some rights and some basic understandings that many of us have taken for granted for a number of years, which is that big money and corporations, anonymous special interest groups should not have unfettered power to influence elections, to basically pay off politicians and make decisions that really are not accountable to the people, but still involve and affect quite profoundly the lives of all the citizens of this country, and even those who are not citizens, but still have to live with the ramifications of U.S. domestic and foreign policy. So, for those of you who are veteran watchers, you've already seen a few familiar faces. And again, my name's David Blakesley. I'm a member of IGE here, and my job here tonight is to kind of facilitate a conversation. But in order to know who we're talking to, we're just going to do a little general round of introductions here. These are all people who live in and around Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'll start right to my right here, and we'll just go around in a circle and kind of get to know each other.
My name's Kate Shockey, and I'm a volunteer at IGE, and I'm also involved with Move to Amend Grand Rapids.
All right, good to see you again, Kate.
I'm Barbara Cote. I'm with Move to Amend and MoveOn.org.
I'm Michael Stauffer. I'm with Move to Amend and Represent.us.
I'm Paul Mayhew. I'm with Move to Amend and Voices Not Heard in Michigan.
I'm Scott Snyder, and I'm here to run public food.
Everyone's
Hi, I'm Burton Cruz, and I am just starting as an intern at IGE. I'm getting my feet wet, and I am a student at the Brooks College of Interdisciplinary Studies within Grand Valley State University.
Good to have you with us, Bert.
My name is Johanna Sizik, and I've been somewhere near this room for the last 3 years since we have been working as a local Move to Amend group. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you with us as well. Chester's making his way in, so Chester, why don't you kind of amble on in front of the camera and say hello.
Hello. I'm both with Move to Amend and IGE, one of the board members.
And the producer of this fine
And
program,
producer of the show.
provider of snacks and coffee and Good vibes and everything. All right. Well, the gang's all here. So I'm going to kind of kick it over to Barbara or Michael. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about Move to Amend, maybe explain kind of the basics of it for people who don't know what Move to Amend is, and then maybe catch us up on what's been happening with this movement, which is not just a local thing. This is a national movement, which many of you are representing. So I'll kind of ask one of you to kind of give us the basic layout here.
Move to Amend is a national grassroots, nonprofit, nonpartisan citizens group that grows out of the Supreme Court ruling of the Citizens United that basically gave unlimited amounts of corporate campaign funding federally and then impacted all the states as a consequence of that, and has has resulted in a lot of corruption in our politics. Candidates like Walker are running states that they have no local representation for. Money flows in such amounts that there's no longer one person, one vote.
The
It's now-
Citizens United also the one that made it anonymous?
Citizens United was the ruling that they don't have to disclose what their, either their amount or who they are, or what they're donating
There's basically no caps on donation.
Right.
I mean, there may be a few select races, but the general idea is that groups, corporations are people, they can exercise free speech, so to speak, by donating money, but it's in such a powerful way that advertising and campaigning and the supporting of an infrastructure for more of a low-budget, populist grassroots candidate really just can't compete with these bankroll corporate spokespeople and the blitz of advertising and everything else that comes with it, affecting even how legislators vote, right? I mean, because
and policy.
and policy, right? Because it's not just about getting elected; it's about what laws and what proposals are they going to support? What kind of legislation are they going to, get through their local, state, and national legislatures, and say this is now the law.
And a lot of the groups are set up as not-for-profits, so that they're not officially, technically lobbying groups according to the
They're
law.
social
They're
concerns.
social concerned groups, and they've really very, very underhanded the way that they operate.
Right, very much blurred the line between where I'm just trying to help people and create a better quality of life, but they're really just advertising firms for a particular candidate or for a particular cause.
Or
Whether-
against.
Or,
Or against.
or against, exactly, yeah. They undermine certain candidates or make them look bad or negative.
In fact, Citizens United was a nonprofit, or is.
Yeah.
Probably still in existence. That's when the super PACs came into being.
Mhm.
PACs were kind of regulated. Super PACs technically aren't supposed to actually coordinate and be in communication with someone's campaign.
They advocate for an
Because of-
issue, but not for a
Right.
candidate.
Well, they can advocate for a candidate or against his opponent. They are not supposed to coordinate with the
Okay.
campaign.
Right.
That has been. And
How do you really guarantee that there's no phone conversation or
Right.
email or texting going on?
And usually
Right.
they're set up by people who were part of the campaign, and then
Oh,
they
yeah.
technically go off and become independent.
A
Talk
former
to-
Bush advisor
Yes.
now is
Yeah.
forming a nonpartisan group.
And
Well,
does not
wait a
talk
minute,
to the
look
Bush
at-
kid,
And there are groups that
campaign.
share the same address.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court didn't say that, they said that we could make disclosure laws, we could have them. But the money is so rampant in Congress that, getting disclosure laws, look what just happened in Michigan. Now, wealthy, whoever, they can contribute twice as much as they could before.
Right.
And in Michigan, they don't have to disclose.
And what is disclosure? It's putting it in this tiny print advertisement on section G, page 18 of the newspaper somewhere. I mean,
If
who
they have
really,
to.
if they have to.
They have to, they don't.
But there's a
Right.
whole thing of dark money which
Oh, yeah.
comes in from
Exactly.
all across the country.
Right.
At
It
least
could be.
that much. But, and it's just a category now that
Well, that's
don't even have fine print to
Yeah.
To be
To
clear,
trace it.
Yeah.
to be clear, I think we need to make sure that people understand that PACs and super PACs refer to political action committees.
Sure, yeah, let's be
There are
very
people who don't
concrete here.
understand that, and that's why with the Citizens United ruling, when they made speech, free speech was related to money with the unlimited donation. So dollars equal votes, not one person, one vote. And also they made corporations have the rights of persons, which is what the We the People amendment that we are promoting. And it's online. If you go to moveon.org, you can find the amendment to the Constitution. It would be the 28th Amendment, and it would rescind that corporations are people and that money is free speech, so that we go back to one person, one vote democracy.
Speech is the art of persuading people as to the legitimacy of your point of view, your cause, and having a debate of ideas rather than drowning somebody in advertising or negative campaigning.
I'm thinking about, is there any takers on the national scene? We've been doing Move to the Moon for, let's see, 3-4 years.
It's been several years,
Yeah,
yes.
maybe, and so, have we got any takers?
Like, are you talking about like
Congress?
national level
Yes.
politicians?
At the level of the body of politics?
Yeah.
Has
Yes.
anybody took this bar and said, let's push this bar?
There is currently a House resolution on number 29 that is in the wording that.
How many people, how many reps are
To start with,
supporting
I
that?
don't know if we've had
Yeah,
more
is
added.
it possible to put names, or are we talking about,
Yeah.
like Alan
Names
Grayson?
would- Alan
I know
Grayson.
he's pretty progressive, Elizabeth Warren in the Senate from
I would have to
Massachusetts.
open my computer to find it,
Yeah,
because I
and maybe we
remember
don't
their
want
names.
to do that right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but I think your point is well taken, Paul. We can kind of shake and stamp and our boots and raise our voices, but until there's some kind of movers and shakers at that higher level,
Yeah.
what kind of connection or traction is this movement getting? And it might be a pertinent question to answer.
Action.
Now, I want to say that it's getting a lot of movement from a lot of different places.
Yeah, and
There
that
are,
may
you
be
know,
where we're at. yeah.
recognized places, and I just know through the information from Public Citizen, and they acknowledge that it's a whole bunch of people
Yeah.
contributing this. So I don't know exactly which resolutions they're talking about, which actions but at the national level, there are 105 people who have signed on for an amendment.
Or in the
You're
bid?
talking about the U.S. Congress?
Congress,
House
House.
of Representatives?
House.
Okay.
In the
Yes.
House?
105, okay, that's a
Now, that's
substantial number.
Yes.
substantial and that's tangible.
And
Yeah.
they
Because
have,
now we know there's some people in there.
I had my stuff written
doing
down, and
it.
they have like 30-some senators who have signed on.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So it
that's
has
also
some potential.
significant. That's a
Yeah.
third
Or
almost of
a
the Senate.
lifeline.
And I
Yeah.
can say
Yeah.
there is one representative from Michigan,
Okay.
only one, but. yeah,
Can
they-
you
they
name
put
who
out
that
a-
is?
No.
Okay,
no,
you don't know,
I really
okay.
don't know.
And there are like 5 or 6 amendments, different people have introduced them, and their wording
Challenging
is different.
citizen- I mean, 5 or
Yes.
6 amendments that would basically try to at least
Change.
limit the influence or the impact of
Yes,
citizens.
yes, there's Sanders-Deutsch amendment.
Bernie Sanders, probably?
Bernie
Okay,
Sanders.
sure.
And Representative Deutsch, so that's in the House, Joint Resolution 34, and Senate Joint Resolution 11. And then there's Edwards in the House, and they're all worded a little bit differently.
Mhm.
And move to amend, they're very, very strongly stating that, we're only gonna get one chance at this.
Hmm.
And to
So they want to coalesce around one
Yeah.
amendment or one particular
around
intent?
one amendment, and the biggest thing is the corporate constitutional rights and money as speech. And our amendment is so short and precise, it doesn't leave loopholes for
Okay.
interpretation. And that's why, and on the website, movemovement.org, there are amendment comparisons, and they're giving their assessment of what the different amendments will do and what they're lacking.
I think Johanna has the text. Why don't you go ahead and
Yes.
just read it to us? I think it's brief enough if I look at it on the page that it shouldn't take too long
Okay,
to
it
go
has
through.
two sections. First one says the rights protected by the Constitution of the United States are the rights of natural persons only. Artificial entities established by the laws of any state, the United States, or any foreign state shall have no rights under this Constitution and are subject to regulation by the people through federal, state, and local law. The privileges of artificial entities shall be determined by the people through federal, state, or local law, and shall not be construed to be inherent or inalienable.
Yeah,
One.
okay, section one.
And there is a history. There have been other Supreme Court rulings that have indicated that corporations have some aspects of person.
Yeah, they're called unnatural people, I think,
Yeah,
or unnatural
yeah.
persons.
So that's why they wanted it so clear to stamp that out.
It's like 125 years ago, on the late, what, 1886?
And section 2 is, federal, state, and local government shall regulate, limit, or prohibit contributions and expenditures, including a candidate's own contributions and expenditures, to ensure that all citizens, regardless of their economic status, have access to the political process, and that no person gains, as a result of their money, substantially more access or ability to influence in any way the election of any candidate for public office or any ballot measure. Federal, state, and local government shall require that any permissible contributions and expenditures be publicly disclosed. The judiciary shall not construe the spending of money to influence elections to be speech under the First Amendment.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, because you think about just the implications of that and living within those boundaries.
Yes,
What
everything.
a boost for freedom and democracy and citizen participation, and really allowing the will of the people to be expressed as the will of the people rather than kind of what special interests kind of, pressure and maneuver people into accepting as inevitable.
And there's two things citizens can do again. We were talking about how many legislators, how many senators, how many congressmen are in favor. One is that we can find out, especially people who are running for campaign, but those people who are in office, what their position is on this amendment. And another is that you can go online, as I said earlier, to the moveon.org, and you can find the We the People Amendment, which Joanna just read, which will restore one person, one vote.
It's also on movetoamend.org, under the amendment.
Yeah, moveon.org and movetomend.org.
Are two
They're two different
Or
websites and really two different
petitions.
organizations, right?
That
Right.
Move On is supporting us in our amendment for this
Yeah,
year,
and-
and they have an online petition that's very simple to access and sign. But there's also one at the National Move to Amend.
I think it's just worth pointing out that because they sound similar, move on, move to amend, but they really are two separate
Right.
movements, if you will, or organizations that grew up
Right.
at different times. They just have a common perspective and
Right.
purpose in some ways.
In this, Move On addresses a lot of different issues.
Oh, sure, definitely.
Move to Amend is very focused on this amendment and,
Yeah.
and getting, democracy to the people, really for the first time, if you look at the history. There are lots of really good articles on the website.
Yeah, nowadays,
Right.
we can say we need to do, a tighter job of regulating gun purchases, let's say, or inclusion of all different sorts of minorities. But even though popular opinion says this is what we think, there's just no way in hell that that's going to get through the Congress as it's currently constituted.
It's the same thing with the living wage.
Right, living
is
wage, minimum
popular
wage
in
increase, yeah,
the
people
party.
across the board, large majority say, let's get the minimum wage at least above $10 an hour, let's start there. I mean, 60-70%, but no, there's not even, nobody's even seriously thinking that might actually pass.
And don't forget Social Security. the
So,
cuts to
yeah,
Social
yeah, oh yeah,
Security.
all the social security or just the social safety net in general, food stamp benefits, the
Right.
SNAP benefits that just got vetoed by, filibustered by one vote today. They wanted to extend the unemployment insurance to 1.7 million people. One senator basically, kibosh the whole thing.
And in
It's
the
very
new
frustrating.
agricultural bill, they're decreasing the SNAP benefits, the food stamp benefits.
Right.
More
Right.
over a number of
Is that the
years.
one the president just signed?
Yes,
They
yes,
just
yes.
signed it. Yeah, Debbie Stabenow is going to sign it in Lansing tomorrow,
Right.
East Lansing. It'll be a
Right.
big ceremony, and
I
give
read
credit
that.
to our senator for getting the dirty work done and passing this
Yeah.
bill, but it's still very unfortunate
Yeah,
that we
they-
have to cut these benefits.
Yeah, they didn't cut them as much as the Republicans wanted, but they did cut them some.
Right. And some of those cuts will be sort of delayed over
Yes, over
time,
10
so,
years.
10 years.
so they'll hit
Uh-huh.
well after this group of politicians are accountable for their votes.
Right.
And I can just say that I got a letter from Debbie Stabenow
Yeah.
today, so, and I questioned her on that and
Yeah.
expressed myself. And, like a lot of things, I put it into a context of trying to clean up the places in which those monies are used, not precisely the way those of us who think other people need to be really
Sure.
careful about how they use money more than we are. So that's kind of how it's couched, that over the
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
it won't be, nobody will be denied, anybody who's getting SNAP now will not be decreased in any way. But, going forward, there will be less money available, so in effect, it's,
Except they were just increased.
yeah,
in
it's a
November.
big budget, yes.
So then it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
$60 a week or something.
But back to this point that, my vote might actually count for something that no lobbyist out there can just drown in one, 3-martini lunch negotiation somewhere on K Street, I mean, there is such a pervasive kind of cynicism and resignation that permeates our whole populace.
Right.
At whatever side, whether you're conservative, liberal, or somewhere in between, you just feel like, it's the money boys. They're the ones who decide all this stuff, and we're just kind of along for the ride. That is not what our founding fathers envisioned, and it's not really what we were educated to believe as children about what this country's supposed to be about, right?
The whole thing about Take Back the Streets, it
Yeah.
was brought up after Citizens United, the Wall Street versus Main Street.
Yes.
And it was blamed on Main Street that they were trying to redistribute the wealth. Well, in fact, the wealth was being redistributed by Wall Street.
Oh, upwards,
Yeah.
definitely consolidated, really.
Right.
And I do recall some of our earlier Move to Amend conversations on IGTV talks here were done quite in conjunction with the Occupy Wall Street, the
Right.
demonstrations, and that was a pretty big dynamic thing that was going on. And who knows, maybe this spring or summer, once things warm up again, Occupy will make itself known. But I think it's been interesting to see how the two efforts have kind of, split and Move to Amend keeps kind of persisting along there. So what's been going on movement-wise about with Move to Amend, getting signatures, talking to politicians, I mean, what's been happening behind the scenes of this group?
We're largely educational
Yeah.
in our intent, and we do try to get the petition online signed so that we can support those legislators that are
Okay.
going out and promoting the amendment for us. Right now, Move to Amend is doing a fundraiser. National is asking that on February 28th, people who are interested in this cause or feel passionate about it, donate $28 on the 28th of each month
Okay.
to help support its efforts, which are pretty
Okay,
costly.
sort of a standard donation or something.
Right, and if you go to the website, they will tell you how those dollars would be allocated, so that you're an informed contributor.
We are a month into 2014 now. Of course, 2014 is a midterm election year, as there's going to be some effort to say, even to representatives like our locals, Justin Amash and Bill Heisinger, I think neither of them want to touch a Move to Amend or this proposed amendment, but can we at least propose the question to them and make them take a stand on that
There is a
issue?
campaign with Move to Amend, and it's called Pledge to Amend.
Yeah.
And so they're proposing that you go to your people running for office,
Whether that's on the state or national
yeah,
level.
whatever, and ask them, get their commitment, are they,
Yeah.
and publish that, make it a campaign issue.
Yeah, because I would like to see these guys who claim to be, representing we the people, make the case why corporations should have unfettered access. I mean, I think both Heisinger and Amash are quite hugely bankrolled by
Yeah.
corporations despite their posturing.
Yes.
And they don't want to turn off that flow, you know.
Well,
Last summer,
Everybody's
went to
bankrolled by
prep school with
corporations.
Rick DeVos.
Oh, of course, yeah. He's,
I mean,
and Michael, you want to say that?
Everybody's bankrolled by.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, for sure.
I mean, so how do you deal with this,
Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, we're talking about the food stamp benefits, so on one hand, here we are, talking about the food stamp benefits, but then, we also had Ben Bernanke, buying with a subsidy, buying the bonds and reducing the risk,
Yeah.
so that corporations could make money on the stock market.
Of course, yeah.
So, so people got to be able to see how that stuff relates together. Because to purchase those bonds to keep the interest rates low is just as much a subsidy as, the farm bill
Oh,
and
sure.
the
Right.
money that people get from welfare.
Yeah, we might get a few
So you
crumbs
don't
in
have
refinancing
people-
our mortgage,
you don't
but
have
the
people
burial money's somewhere else.
connecting the dots.
Right.
But
The
there's-
dots is what people need to understand. If they understood it was my table,
Uh-huh.
this is my table, but then here is another table that's set by corporate America.
Yeah.
Where you can get the Fed to buy bonds so that they can make money.
Right.
Same table.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the
the money's
corruption.
just piped right in.
Well, there's another organization, and I don't know what the letter is, ALEC, ALEC, and I forget.
It's like the American Leadership
Legislative-
Legislative.
Yeah, American
Education.
Education.
Council or
And
something.
it's, I believe it's,
Exchange
it's,
Council.
bankrolled partially by the Koch brothers. And it has a lot of huge corporations, who are members, but don't disclose to their shareholders that they are members.
And these
the-
are like name
Like,
brands.
yeah, people like McDonald's and a
Yeah.
couple corporations have actually, withdrawn.
As
But-
Alex got a
but-
little attention, they don't want to be
Yes.
close identified.
yeah.
But they don't have to, they don't tell their shareholders necessarily that they belong to it. And the purpose of this group is to write laws, sample laws, model laws that they can give to legislatures in various states. One of the things they got in trouble with is gun laws and things, and what they will do
Well,
is.
they were kind of stand your ground.
They
Yeah,
wrote
stand your,
Right.
yeah,
They
I mean,
wrote-
they formulated the stand your ground law, and they sent it to legislatures, and they meet with legislatures
Sure.
from various states and try to get these sort of model laws passed in different states, and that they'll give the wording to the representative.
Yeah.
And they wine and
Fine
dine all of
details,
these
right.
poor,
Right.
state.
So the representative,
People-
they don't have to tell their staffers to go do the research, oh,
No.
here it is, spoon-fed.
Yeah, it's already
Right.
written.
Pre-formatted, everything's good to go, we
Well,
just gotta
there-
give
yeah,
it the
and I
thumbs
think-
up.
And in Michigan,
Yeah.
we taxpayers put the bill for some of that travel.
Yeah.
Exactly to Alex,
Yeah.
that was exposed. Yeah.
I'd like to know more about, you mentioned we could send in letters to our schools and make sure, could you explain the corporations again?
Yeah, well, the corporations there are two membership categories in ALEC. One is corporations who provide the funding, and the other is state legislators, who are, twice a year, they are wined and dined. And this group does sample legislation, so that legislatures don't have to do their own research, and they're trying to make things like stand your ground laws, which was one they got in trouble with, uniform in all the states.
Right to
Um,
work,
The right to work.
Oh, yeah.
And the
a lot of them.
many
They've had a lot
large
of
corporations.
success. It's not just that one that is pretty unpopular.
No, I mean, there are a lot, they do it for a lot of different things. And corporations belong to this and provide money. Many publicly traded corporations, which technically are owned by the stockholders, but many of them do not tell their stockholders that they are members of this. And that I think that we should start a campaign to try to make corporations not be part of this, and to disclose to their shareholders if they are.
Yeah, I think there have been some efforts already to that
Yes, there have
effect,
been
but-
some.
I remember when, isn't it illegal to wine and dine?
No.
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 For
No.
lobbyists?
No, because they're not lobbyists. They are one of a not-for-profit corporation, and they have two classes of members. They've got the money people,
Mhm.
and then they've got the state legislators. And so they get together for meetings
Yeah.
Okay.
twice,
They're
I think it's
advocacy
twice a
groups.
year. So they
Two
get
times.
together, and the state legislatures, most of whom don't have much money, get treated royally.
Well,
But
It's
another-
illegal to not disclose to the stockholder.
No,
That's
it's
what
not,
it-
no, it's not
Yeah.
illegal.
They have to
Not
be
anymore.
fully informed and fairly treated.
But
No,
that
it's
fully
not,
informed
it's not
consent
illegal for them to
law.
not tell stuff. They want to, they've been trying to get it so that corporations do not have to tell stockholders, and many corporations have not told staff.
This is
And their
Alex-
disclosure might be, again, something on
Yeah.
page 37 of their annual report with all the fine print
Yeah,
and everything
and,
else, right?
with the really.
I
small
can't
type.
imagine I'm investing my money and somebody's gonna tell me that I can't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Now,
That's true.
And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
that's fully informed and fairly treated.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine, and if I'm gonna invest with you, and you're gonna tell me I can't know, then what needs to happen
Yeah, is
is
that
the
some kind of
stockholders need to get
Trade
together.
secrets or
Yeah.
some sort
Yeah.
of,
You
yeah,
have to know to ask.
yeah, you
Yeah,
have to know,
right.
you have to
That's
know to
it.
ask.
Yeah.
right.
If
And
you
then-
don't know to ask
Right.
what their political
Yeah.
affiliations are.
Right, and you
And
think, well,
that's
this
free
corporation, they're
speech
part of some
on the other
professional
side.
guild or,
Yeah.
you know, or association that says we're gonna stand up for our business interests, well, sure, that makes sense.
I mean, you gotta,
Until it gets to the
Yeah.
point of writing finely detailed legislation with all the pre-programmed loopholes that they're just ready to pounce on and exploit, tax deductions and, you know, special favored treatment and all the other goodies that are buried in the fine print
Yeah.
there.
And
Yeah,
it's
but
not
for
that
as
you
many
have to
people
go
that are
find those
talking about-
papers, you're handed them.
Yeah.
Freshman
Oh, yeah,
legislators are
yeah.
handed those sheets. Did you ever wonder why everybody seems to be talking the same
Yeah.
Oh,
line,
sure.
you know, on that other side?
They go on the talk shows and it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
comes
Got
spouting
panels,
out.
you know,
Right,
with
sure,
Obamacare,
yeah.
you know.
Well,
all
a
that
couple
kind
of
stuff.
things, they don't just wine and dine them. They say if their
Campaign.
whining and dining is not successful, they will threaten that they will be primaried out.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they'll find
right.
someone to run against them in the primaries, finance that primary campaign, and they'll lose their
It's
seat.
really
And
protection,
as
right?
far
It
as,
is what it
yeah,
is, you know.
Is it illegal to wine and dine? That money was first classified as speech back in 1976, and it was a lobbying issue that went before the Supreme Court. And that was the first time they said that that money was speech. And since it was a lobbying issue, that's when money, job offers, all kinds of perks
Yeah.
were, you know, you go into, I saw Lawrence Lessig talk about that. It's like you go into somebody's office. Johnson had a cigar box with a hole in it, and you put your money in his cigar box before you talk to anybody.
Right.
And they're more sophisticated now, but
Okay.
yeah, it's.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, this is important, a lot of people don't know, but just prior to the Citizens United ruling, Justices Roberts and Scalia were part of that Koch brothers organization. They came to that meeting, and there was no longer an independent Supreme Court. Our
Correct.
Supreme Court became corrupt.
Well, yeah, they became part of the operation. Go ahead.
I
Bert.
gotta, well, because you say money runs everything. This is gonna sound naive, and I need to read a lot more history, but isn't that the way our capital runs everything in this world, in this country? This
In this
capitalistic
country.
society. It's right in the name of our form of.
Well, but
Capital-
capitalism is not a part of our government.
Not our
Capitalism is
government.
an economic
That's it, yeah.
system.
Okay, economic.
And our government is supposed to be a representative democracy, you know, a republic where people vote for their representatives, and they do so based on their, you know, freedom of speech and conscience and freedom of assembly to weigh the issues and say, here's our consensus, or here's our varied opinions, to say, we vote for this representative, to say, this person will do what's we consider the best interest of this, whether it's district, state, nation, you know, whatever level you're voting for. The problem now is that we really do have this money intrusion into the exercise of democracy and representative government that has really warped the playing field itself. Doesn't mean people still can't draw their own conclusions and think of themselves, but such obstacles are erected to even have a free exchange of ideas that, you know, if you don't play the insider game, you can't even get time on the stage at a debate. I mean, that's why we've got the two parties and not the third or fourth or fifth parties up there saying, let's consider this possibility, rather than the, you know, Tweedledum, Tweedledee that we tend to get in our mainstream politics today.
And that's a big thing, we lost debate, we lost democracy
Yeah.
when we lost debate.
Right.
You know, I don't know that we
But that
ever
goes back to
really
what you're
had
talking
democracy the way we think of it
That-
today.
that's-
No,
That's
we
my
probably
answer.
never did, because women didn't vote, minorities didn't vote, there's a lot of,
Only landowners,
right,
only white
but
men.
can we move toward that more perfect union where every individual, where all men and women are created equal, where representation really does extend to every adult voting his or her conscience, which also means opening up the voting process rather than putting up barriers to voting. It's a whole other topic which we're probably going to get into, but I think Alec is probably behind a lot of these, you know, voter IDs and all the other, you know,
Yeah, they write,
harassments.
they write voter ID laws and
Yeah.
give them to legislatures so they can just vote
to
on them
suppress the
without.
vote in some districts and really amplify the vote and the influence of other
Well,
districts.
also, I think in Michigan, we have problems because of the term limits. That the
Oh, sure.
legislators
I think
can
it's a
only,
huge
there's no
excellent.
institutional memory because people are out after a couple of terms.
Well-
And all of the legislators spend their time making nice to lobbyists so they can get a job when they leave.
Well, right,
Plus-
because that's the turnaround.
Yes,
there.
that's the
So
turnaround.
you're kind of put on a happy face, you sort of become a compliant, go along, get along, you can count on me kind of guy or woman.
Mm-hmm.
You get your 2 terms in and then boom, you're on the gravy train in the lobby.
And then there's another amendment that they're trying to get people to a petition where they want to make the legislature part-time. So they would only meet for 60 days a
Yeah.
year, which,
National or
That's
state?
No,
federal-
state.
That's, no, it's
State.
state. That's what's happening in Michigan right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
They're
Right.
trying to sell this idea of limited government, basically.
Part-time legislature.
Right, part-time legislator, which means we basically program them, tell them how to vote, do their work,
Yeah.
go to Lansing. You know,
Well,
we'll have all the
We
work.
won't do that, not with people, not with like Alec and that, and one of the
Yeah,
things
those
too that
legislators are bad.
Citizens United did is there were, I think the number was 23 states that had either bans or restrictions on out-of-state money coming in to influence local policy. Citizens United wiped that out, and though I was asking in our email thing if we had an example of that in Michigan, I don't know if we did, but I know that Montana had a 100-year-old campaign financing law because their state had been pretty much run by the lumber barons.
Oh, yeah. all those
And
western states.
so somebody challenged that after Citizens United, and the Montana State Supreme Court upheld Montana's law, and the U.S. Supreme Court said
Struck it down.
Wow.
the 100-year-old law was struck down
Right.
with Citizens United.
So there goes our democracy again.
How has capital come to be the most important element of like living and like this accumulation of wealth and this idea? And I think this, you know, because that's what I'm thinking about, and I'm kind of.
Well, I like to kind of put it in a global perspective and how America became a global power, furthered this capitalist message of how to organize your life. You've got to organize things around money and power. Money is power.
Yeah, money is the means
So we
to
end up with
coerce
corporations
people.
that are running the world, but they're American corporations. There's some kind of I think there was some devil's bargain or whatever it's called, where
Yeah.
people figured that better the devil we know than, better an American corporation run, Coca-Cola or GM or whoever dominates the sales of cars or Coke.
Well, yeah.
Rather than some German or Russian African
Right,
company.
the merger of capitalism and nationalism, so that even if you're a poor peon working on the the lower level of the economic strata, well, it's still our guys, or this identification with our bosses as the rulers of the world, the masters of the universe. And money does have this immediacy to it that ideas or values or culture in this more abstract sense doesn't have. Money gets results. Money, just like violence, armed violence in particular, you exercise that power and things change. People either act like they're supposed to or they get out of the way, and that is kind of a raw exercise of power. The question is that really how we the people want our nation to function? And I think, at least those of us in this room, I think there was a lot of other people that they felt like their voice really had a chance to link up with enough others who felt like them, that maybe we could turn this thing around and have a more representative, humane, participatory system of government.
That was one of the things that was comforting for me in a way when I found out about Oakville, because it was somebody's actually doing something.
Right.
And
it may be an uphill battle. It is an uphill battle.
Yeah.
It's a long shot even, let's just admit it.
I
but
came in,
let's try.
Grand Rapids, we were doing, collecting signatures to get on the ballot in Grand Rapids, and what the heck does Grand Rapids, Michigan have to do with amending the Constitution of the United States? But you start from the grassroots.
Yeah.
And you, because when it rolls out from Congress, if we do it that way, because there is another way to do it, but if it rolls out from Congress, it's the legislature that votes on it, not the people. So we need to start now instructing our legislatures what we want. And the other way is that if 3/4 of the states, you can hold a single issue constitutional amendment, or a constitutional convention, and bypass Congress altogether.
Yeah.
You gotta have money to advertise,
Right.
money to
Exactly.
move the issue. So we're talking about getting the states to solidify that. You've gotta have money to elect people that think like you, So it's a real quagmire, but then the only ray of hope that we have is those 100 and some people that's already signed the dotted line, that's walking around in the halls of Congress and talking with people so they can build coalition based on trading horses.
Yeah. Hopefully exercising some leadership, because we still, this is the nature of human society. You've got to have leaders who champion the cause.
Yeah.
If we're just a bunch of anonymous, regular, everyday folks, we will only get so far.
But you got to
There have
trade
be
horses
people.
too.
Right. Yeah, you've got to be able to say, I will support this if you support that.
Well,
That's America.
That's America. I've been studying Ella Baker for some time in this
Okay.
leadership class,
Yeah.
and she was kind of the undercurrent, she was kind of standing. She was born in 1903, and she worked beside Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and these big deal people that you hear about all the time. But her big motto was that strong people do not need strong leaders. And so this idea that we need these big leaders to move us forward, in her eyes, was pretty ludicrous. And she butted heads with Martin Luther King because he was this charismatic figure, whether it was his own doing or not. But she felt the best thing we could do for humanity was to educate every individual. So whether it's the guy cleaning the street or whoever. And so that's kind of where I thought of that when you said we need the strong leader mentality.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's an interesting debate.
And that's-
You wanna go ahead and jump in on
That's
that?
where the local resolutions come into play.
Right.
Where the local governments, the city governments, and even state governments have passed resolutions saying we are in support of this.
Yeah.
They're not
To
waiting.
date, 500 have passed.
Yeah, more than that, I think.
More than
No,
500.
I think one of the challenges to sort of an idea that such as what Ella Baker, who I don't really know a lot about, admit, may be promoting, is that we do live in a society, in a culture, even globally, where it does seem to coalesce around certain pivotal key figures.
it's a very patriarchal society, and we go around these the idea of the charismatic masculine man, that we all kind of follow him. And she basically, and it's a very feminist idea.
Yeah.
No, screw that. we don't screw them, but,
Yeah.
you know, we need to
But,
move
but
away
let's,
from
let's
that.
move away from that. Yeah, and I think as we become, in some ways, more egalitarian and less focused on, let's just face it, the great white male leader, which has been the traditional paradigm in Western society for a long time, but even, charismatic, I mean, a woman like Oprah Winfrey,
Mhm.
she is very powerful, very influential. If she were to get behind Move to Amend, you would see the ranks swell of people saying, heck yeah, I'm behind that too, that makes sense. So it's
Good
not
idea,
necessarily,
David.
well, sure, Oprah, are you watching? But, so it's not so much about the great man, but it is about that kind of figurehead, if you will, or that spokesperson with whom people identify and say, you know what, that makes sense, doggone it. And whether it's a politician, whether it's a public celebrity, if you will, an artistic figure,
But you know, the next
musician,
thing
whatever.
that would happen is the big money would come down on her for being like Barbara Streisand or all these.
Well,
Richard Gere, all
right.
those wacky Hollywood people.
well, yeah, but sometimes
They
those
don't
wacky
understand
Hollywood,
real
but
business
sometimes
world.
those wacky Hollywood people are able to move the social agenda, and we've talked about, legalization of cannabis, or at least decriminalization of it. We've talked about gay marriage and other types of social movements where the progressive side seems to be gathering momentum despite the big money, despite the corporations. And so this is a constant push and pull, and there's not going to be one steamroll of any one side or the other that just goes and prevails over everything. So yeah, I mean, a perfect egalitarianism where everybody's fully educated and making wise, informed choices is a great ideal, but people sort of need to follow a leader. There's still that part of.
I'm wondering what
Let's see.
Move to Amend has to say about the global situation. Do we, I guess
Are
we're
you
focused
referring
on
to-
this law in the United States, and really we can't do much about how they organize their lives in Russia or Africa.
I mean,
I
there is a
don't know.
limit.
We
to
are
it.
such
Focused on-
leaders on the whole trade pacts and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
international stuff. Barbara and I shared an article in the Nation magazine, and I was in El Salvador 2 years ago, a year ago, October, and I saw they pointed out the road that the government had set up there with the money from corporations because they were working on mining that gold in that one main hill out there
In
out
El
in the country,
Salvador,
El
yeah.
Salvador, yeah. Anyway, here's an article on, the title is Strategic Fight Against Corporate Rule. And, I mean,
Sounds like a
corporations are so
manifesto.
strident. You know what I mean, corporations are good, but they are what they are. But where they have come and the world in which we live is so blown over by them
Right.
because they have the guts to say we have the right to sue governments for cutting into our profits.
Right.
And the TPP.
And they do, yeah. And
The
the TPP,
TPP
yes.
is very dangerous, the
That's
Trans-Pacific
all-
Partnership.
Yeah, I think that would be something
You
I'd
know.
almost like to do a full episode.
Yeah.
Can you summarize for us very briefly what that's about? Because I've been seeing these alarming headlines and articles, and yet it seems to be just rolling right along, like right under the radar.
Well, the
That's right.
Trans-Pacific Partnership is 12 countries, pretty much on the Pacific,
Rim,
Rim.
the China,
Um,
Japan, Korea, USA, of course.
Chile, Mexico,
Okay, so South America
Canada.
as well.
Yeah.
Is Australia
I
involved in that?
think possibly,
Okay.
they might be, yeah.
Principal.
But it's been called NAFTA on steroids.
Right, right.
And it has
Well, if you think
29
about those
chapters.
powers, China and the USA, and then all the surrounding
I don't know if
nations.
China's in it.
I don't know.
Japan
They may
is,
not be.
but I don't
I
know
don't
if
know.
China's
Okay.
signed on for that.
Okay.
But the thing of it is
Still,
what you
Malaysia,
brought up about,
yeah.
you brought up about a company being able to sue, that's part of the TPP there. It's been very, very secret, and it's been slowly leaked over the last
Yeah.
several months. And
It's a big
there are
thriller.
29 chapters, and only 5 of them actually deal with commerce.
Okay.
Actually deal with trade. Some of them are like, the pharmaceutical companies would like unlimited patents. So then there would be no generics and they'll.
So they would just
you know,
own that
Yes.
chemical
Yes.
combination
Yes.
in perpetuity.
Yes.
And a country may not be able to say, no, we don't want GMO seeds.
Really?
We're not gonna
Yeah.
allow them.
Oh.
The
Because-
corporation could sue the
Yeah.
country and say, you're stopping our products,
Yeah.
this is an illegal law.
Loss
Yeah.
of future revenue.
So, yeah,
And-
so this is really corporations,
Safety,
private
yeah.
Yeah, safety.
Any of
enterprises
those aspects.
superseding the rights of the
Yes.
people
Yes.
and multiple nations to
Yes.
represent their own interests and say, we're gonna say no to this particular program.
Yes.
And the corporation says, no, we're gonna trump that.
Well, it actually, yeah, it
Wow.
takes away sovereignty of nations, of local governments and state governments. If you remember last summer, or summer of 12,
Yeah.
one of the ballot issues that, it didn't make it on the ballot, but it was about 8 new casinos
Mhm.
that were non-native casinos.
Right.
Basically, the way they had it written would be into the Constitution of Michigan, that the communities wouldn't be able to vote on that.
Yeah.
That they just, and this is what the TPP does. It would be, if, well, Walmart's a good example to take. If Walmart wanted to put a store in at a certain place and the community said no, Walmart could sue the community for loss of future revenues, and they could, but it won't go through our court system, it'll go through a tribunal made up
Sort
of
some
corporate
arbitrator,
attorneys.
right.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
made up of corporate
pre-rigged,
attorneys,
basically.
so it's
Wow.
basic.
Yeah.
And you know what, credit card companies are doing that right now. My granddaughter is at school, and she wants to start establishing a credit history because she doesn't have one. So
Right.
she's looking at this credit card, and I've kind of guided her through, no annual fee, this kind of stuff. So I was reading all of this stuff, and all of these credit cards and stuff now, and I don't know if other companies are doing it or not, but they say in there that you can't take this, they can't take them to court. You have to go
Right.
through binding arbitration with them.
Well,
So
it's just like,
basically, they're
yeah.
saying, you have no recourse.
Well, it's like
You know?
student loans. You can't declare bankruptcy and get exempted from your student loans. You can declare bankruptcy as a corporation that dumps thousands of gallons of toxins into a river and say, well, we're bankrupt now, sorry, we can't help you.
Right.
But if you're a student that's overwhelmed by debt, well, you're gonna have to pay that no matter how broke you wanna claim you are.
Yeah.
We're gonna hound
And
you
even
till
especially
the
if you
grave.
didn't even
Right.
get a degree.
Right, right. I mean, it's just, and so they're building this sort of immunity into these laws that says, whatever your recourse you think you may have, we're still untouchable. We're gonna
And
get it.
that's the financial institutions. And
Yeah.
about, I don't know, 3 months ago, there was a law that, it passed the House. I don't know if it ever got any further than that. But it would have torn down all of the consumer protection from the financial industry that was put in place after the 2008 crash.
Right.
And it was like 95% of it was written verbatim by Citigroup, one
Yeah.
of the big banks that
Oh, yeah.
that took our money, took our bailout money. They helped cause the problem, and
Right.
they're writing our laws
And they've
'cause they're
sifted through
paid.
every legal action, every lawsuit, every kind of thing that kind of goes against them and said, we're gonna preempt all of that in this blanket of legislation, and now there's nothing you can do.
And that's
It's
why
infuriating, oh my gosh.
corporations are
Yeah.
not people, and money is not speech.
Right.
Otherwise, people have been fleeing. I mean, we see how low the voter turnout is. And the
Because it
attitude
feels
is
ridiculous,
that it
like, why
doesn't
waste my
matter.
time? Right, right.
And in a lot of ways, they are correct. I mean, Lawrence Lustig has on one of the TED Hours, Lesterland, he wrote a book called Lesterland, and he's explaining how we have a general election, but who makes it to the general election? They don't make it there until the Lesters have their way with them. And, the Lesters are the big money people and
Oh,
the
yeah.
corporations.
They have to
And-
pass muster to get through the primary seats. Or
Exactly,
even become
so we
contenders for
really
that,
don't
right.
even have a choice.
Is that named
In a
after
sense.
Lawrence Lester?
I don't know, Lawrence Lustig is the one who wrote the book.
What's a Lester?
He just
Yeah,
calls
what's
it
a Lester?
Lesterland. He's just made
Oh.
up a,
Just invented a word.
yes.
Yeah, gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Party
recommend
bosses.
everybody look at the TED Hour archives and find that.
Yeah.
So part of what's going on is that we actually are under corporate rule. We don't
We
have
are.
democracy.
Yeah.
And that's how our nation was founded, because we didn't want to be under the rule of the king,
A monarchy, right?
a monarchy.
Right, and now it's shifted into sort of a different type of entity. Go ahead.
When I brought up the charismatic, masculine image, or like people gravitating towards that, I guess I kind of, now that I think about it, I'm tying that to when you're oppressed or you're poor people think that people who have this mass amount of money and they've managed to kind of win the system, that they somehow work harder or they're much smarter. You know what I mean? And that they bought into the idea.
Well, it's like the divine right of kings. You know, they're the breed apart. They're the 1%, the upper class, the aristocrats, the oligarchy. I mean, all those terms that you can throw out there, and there is an assumption both within that class and within those who kind of follow that they are the betters. They are the chosen ones who really have the best handle on things, the masters of the universe, whatever you want to call them.
So
I think
what
it's
is the figure?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can help me with this. What's coming to my mind is the average of the CEO earnings over the
Well, in
average
this
earnings
country,
of the
it's
worker is.
but there's enough of a veneer that they can throw over to kind of make it tolerable somehow.
I take Romney's comment about the 47% who don't do anything.
Right.
Well, he makes his money from the 47% who
Yeah.
work hard
Yeah.
and don't make a lot of money.
47% of the people were not going to vote for him.
Yes, because
What he didn't
and
say
they're-
was that 47% were going to vote for him.
no, he said that 47% would never vote for him, and
Because they're too content
they're
sponging.
too content
and-
sponging.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
They're
we're all
not
sponging
government
off of
entitled to
people like
government
him
handouts.
who are really.
But I think we
producing.
should recognize the enemy, the 47% who are going to vote for him every time.
So we don't just have
So
to
he was
deal-
right.
But also he
Half right,
says, I work harder and I deserve it. But he doesn't work harder than someone working for minimum wage in one of his companies. They work just as hard, and
No,
they're the
well,
ones who
they-
make the
yeah,
money for
They
him.
perpetuate this myth
Yes.
that they're self-made men or whatever, and
Yeah.
that they're
Oh,
job
it's
creators.
annoying.
Go for it, yeah.
No, that's just that whole
Yeah.
that whole self-made man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That just. I read this great book. Well, I listened to like half of it. By Susan Jacoby, called "The Age of American Unreason," and she talks about Emerson's speech that he gave in the late 1800s at Harvard. And I recommend you guys check it out. "The Age of American Unreason." It's a really
Okay.
great book, and she kind of gets into this idea of American rugged individualism.
Well, there's a mythology, and people take comfort in that. I mean, even if they're not participating at that level, that's just kind of how they've been educated and
Well, that's
culturated
the
to
thing,
think that's
too.
how it's supposed to be.
The education system, when you're talking about what that lady was talking about, that the education of the masses, there's a certain
Hierarchical.
mindset
Yeah.
that doesn't want that, and look what's happening to our schools.
Right.
Oh, the
Yes.
schools are
Yes.
becoming
Yes.
corporate
Yes.
training centers,
Mhm.
and if you
And
don't
you-
fit in, you're
Well,
off
can
in
you
the front
imagine
sheet.
corporate for-profit schools, public money's going into that?
Oh,
That's another thing.
you really wanna-
I would really like somebody to do like a quarterly analysis of what we actually pay at the pump. Because if it says $3.20 at the pump, how much of our taxpayer money has gone into the subsidies
Yeah.
to the oil companies? And then
Oh,
add
yeah.
that in
To what you're
and
paying.
see
Well, yeah,
how
that's
much we're
that's
really
just
paying.
another kind of tick you off thing is like how much money out of stuff that we buy, and yet they're cutting food stamps and unemployment benefits and nickel and diming people down to just subsistence level, and yet money just keeps flowing and flowing endlessly.
I was basically just kind of saying, what do we do? Where do we go
Yeah.
in terms of the situation? Because, as we were talking about the corporate structure and about how everything is alike, and where does the person, the thinking individual go? Because you don't have money to advertise, because and then we have to be able to, if we're going to do this thing, let's say Move to Men has a group, small group, somewhere, and we politically take a person out that is not
Primary
for us.
them
Yeah.
or defeat them in
But
a
then
general
we
election,
have to
right?
have money to tell the rest of the people that is how we did it.
Right.
For example, in Virginia, when they beat the National Rifle Association, you know, the National Rifle Association president in Virginia, they lost an election, but that's under the radar conversation. That should be front and center,
Yeah.
you know, so that people know that you can beat these people with regular human
people-
beings.
I mean, I think part of it is how do we educate ourselves? What media sources do we turn to? And the more and more it goes, the more I'm convinced. If you turn to cable TV or mainstream journalism, you're really getting a bill of goods.
Yeah.
And the NRA and the Koch brothers and the ALEC, they are going to continue to control, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, whatever you consider the liberal media.
Fox TV.
It's all, well, Fox TV.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
But even the so-called
public, yeah.
liberal sources, I mean, the liberal sources, you know, you can certainly learn things from the Rachel Maddows and others, but you really have to go off the grid, so to speak, into those websites or Free Speech TV or, you know, some of the other places, Democracy Now!, just to get that perspective. You might not even agree with everything you see, but they're going to give you a different angle from a multinational.
Right.
Go to Al Jazeera, go to BBC. You know,
Mother Jones.
See Mother Jones. I mean, there's all sorts of good sources, and then there's conversations on the super local level, like what we're having here tonight, which is like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And get it together that way.
Look at the PBS Citizen Code.
Yeah.
PBS.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly, you know,
They withdrew
funded
the
by
Yeah.
the public, and it got
PBS
pulled
and
off
NPR are not what they
because-
used to be. You just have
because
it's a sad
of,
thought,
was
but
it
it's
Charles
true.
Pope? Yeah.
Yeah. They
Charles
They
Pope,
weren't
what,
funded.
he was upset with PBS?
Oh,
Because they
yeah,
were going
movie.
to fund a documentary called Citizen Coke.
was that through
They
the
were
front
funding
line
it.
or
Yeah,
Bill Moyers and all that?
but
Right.
then they
When they
withdrew
pulled the
the
plug.
funding from pressure from him. And so the filmmakers had to finish it on their own, and now they're
And
trying
find alternative outlets to
and
get it
find
shown.
alternative outlets. In fact, we're trying to bring it to Grand Rapids,
Yeah.
but they withdrew the funding and then they wouldn't show it on
Yeah,
TV.
the
Also, both.
corporate ownership of PBS said we can't take this risk. We got to play it
Yeah,
safe,
right.
so we'll shuffle
They had
this
promised
off.
them $260,000, and then they withdrew the money.
Yeah.
And people need to know the Koch brothers, if you know some of the particulars about what corporate is actually doing with all this aggregated wealth and power. The Koch brothers have $116 billion between the two of them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that designed ALEC. They have run the, as we were saying, voter suppression campaign. They are the ones that are going to colleges and universities that have been cut of funds, and they're offering money in exchange for controlling interests of their boards and curricula.
Well, we even had a small example of it at Grand Valley State, where there was some controversy over a student editorial in the paper, and that offended some donors, and so the students got chastised for that. It's like, really? I mean, we're really letting the philanthropists, I mean, philanthropy ain't what it used to be either. It's not just selfless giving, it's like giving with strings attached.
Right.
And it's really sad, but that is just how it is.
But they
you know?
also
Right.
own some of the, the tar sands, coal sands.
Well, yeah,
where
we
they
got
have-
Keystone XL, we can get that in
Yeah,
here.
no, but I mean, the ones
right.
there's one in Chicago, and
Yeah.
I think one in Detroit, where they have these huge mounds of the leftover refuge after they
The industrial waste.
industrial waste, and they own a lot of those, and so they don't want those to be regulated.
Of course, or they want to be immunized from lawsuits and health damages, and I mean, it's just like what happened down in Charleston. It's
But
like,
how do you beat them? See,
well,
how do you- I
there
mean,
just has to
it-
be an uprising.
It's got to
just
be
an
an
outcry.
uprising of people that understand that this is what we did to do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how we did it. It's like I go back to Virginia, you know, with the National Rifle Association. this is how we did it. They poured gazillions of dollars of money into
Right.
Virginia to try to win, I think it was the gubernatorial race.
Well, governor, lieutenant
Yeah.
governor, and attorney general.
And the people said no.
No.
Yeah,
The people said no, and they didn't have that money.
right.
Is that McDonald, the governor?
Well,
I don't
well,
know.
the Virginia Constitution limits governors to one term. Ken Cuccinelli was the lieutenant governor, and he ran for governor in Virginia, but he was defeated. Basically, in Virginia, the right wing tipped its hand too far to the extreme, and Virginia, which had been reliably, red state for many years, went all Democratic. Governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general.
I mean, they
all went
just
Democratic.
wreaked havoc.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We
Yeah.
need the film industry to come out and show us how Virginia did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that gives you a boilerplate, for a regular person to say, dang, I might have some power.
Right.
Just because
Yeah,
John
if enough of us
Jones got
get
the
together,
billions of
right.
dollars, people power might be here.
Right.
That's what I was going to say before we went to break, is that we were talking about the resignation, the cynicism, we were talking about the need for education, how do we inform and get people to participate. Well, what we were talking about really is the need for a paradigm shift, and if you listen to Robert Reich and you listen to Lessig, they're talking about a tipping point. And I think that paradigm shift is what would move us to that tipping point where people nationally are doing what they did in Virginia.
Yeah, it needs to be a nationalized movement
Right,
of people saying, it's people power time.
right.
Well, if we could get more exposure to that, like
Right.
what you said, and have it out there, have the democracy movements say, look what happened in Virginia, this is how they did it, and keep
It
telling
might be
people that.
county by county, state by state for a
Yeah.
while just to gather some momentum, but
Yeah,
Right.
when politicians, when corporations start seeing this is what the people want, they will maybe kicking and screaming, but they will come along.
They'll acquiesce.
Yeah.
But you got to watch them because they'll acquiesce,
Right.
and then they'll buy.
They'll give you your figurehead and then they'll
it's-
slip right in.
because, I've been part of movements, the
Yeah.
Acorn movement, the movement to the Democratic Coalition, Democratic
Sure.
movement. So I've been part of movements. And when you get to the essence of power, then all of a sudden you see your ace coon boom, talk crazy speak to you,
Yeah.
your partner. Say, hey man, all of a sudden their tongue's going the other opposite direction. Then you say, well, I know what happened here.
Yeah.
You took some of that forbidden fruit.
Uh-huh.
Right,
You know.
right. Well, I
Yeah.
went
And you
to-
can't stop that.
No,
because
but you can at
everybody's
least try
trying
to temper the influence,
you can
slow it
temper
down
it,
a little
because
bit.
everybody's
right,
trying to eat.
right.
So
well, that's what the amendment will do,
Yeah.
take
Doesn't mean that people with
Yeah.
power and privilege and
Don't have
prestige,
votes,
they will have clout. I
They'll
mean,
fall.
society
Yeah.
is what it is,
Yeah.
and the movers and shakers will continue to move and shake, but they won't have a monopoly on these
They-
things like they're
right.
trying to.
they don't have monopolies on our think tanks.
Right.
Right. And that's like what, I come up here volunteering all the time because it's a think tank like situation. I have a chance to talk, and sometimes I run into people and say, we saw you talking. And so maybe I'm educating helping to educate some people,
And just giving voice to impulses a lot of us have and say, am I the only one who's seeing how ridiculous this politician is or this advertising campaign?
I
Well,
think what you might be doing also for, and all of you, I think what a lot of you are doing is not necessarily educating or only educating, but you're also reinforcing other people's thoughts that are in the back of their mind
Right.
that they are not sure of. And when you come and bring the points out like you do, you reinforce what they're thinking and give them reason to look at or re-examine what they've been going by or adhering to.
Get
See
involved.
it,
Take
about
action.
getting involved.
Sign a
Changing
petition,
something
you
around.
know?
That's another part of the paradigm shift. Right now, people aren't getting involved in taking action. And Amash was here 2 weeks ago, and we were going to have
Here?
people-
No,
Yeah.
not in this
No,
room.
not in this
In
room.
Grand Rapids.
Amash was here for a town hall, and that meant there were cameras and media there. That was not well attended. That was an opportunity that was really lost. And I did address him directly in that meeting and asked him what he would do to pass legislation to stop the corporate corruption. And he gave a very short little spin about how he thought that the current system benefit newcomers like himself. But that's because he got $1 million from DeVos, and he's
Oh,
got
yeah.
Tea Party money. And
Well, Harvey and I went in last spring, to one of his town halls, and Harvey asked him if he would support an amendment to overturn Citizens United, and he gave that spiel. And he said, I've won twice now, and I haven't taken any PAC money. But you know, the way the super PACs are, he doesn't directly take the money.
right.
They really did the job on
They
Pat
did.
Oh, yeah,
Lyons
all
that
that-
first time, you know.
Americans for Prosperity, AFP. I mean,
Right.
they're out there running issue ads.
Oh,
They're
sure.
putting up anti-Brian Ellis billboards already.
Yep.
They're not saying vote for Amash, but they're certainly doing all the
Yeah, all the
frontline
dirty
groundwork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's called-
Brian Ellis is like a dog mat right now.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
Alliance
think-
for Progress is Koch brothers again. They're very insidious, and they're very strategic. They're going after our education system.
The
They're going-
Alliance for Progress.
Prosperity.
Prosperity.
There you go.
Alliance for Progress is one of
Alliance
our.
for Progress.
I'm
So,
sorry.
when you were saying people weren't, Barb, when you were saying people weren't getting involved enough, that's kind of why you were saying they should have a Hollywood movie about
Right.
Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Just to get
Right.
people inspired to
Just-
show that
yes,
they can,
so to show them that they can.
and it's not too much.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I'm kind of like I'm just starting this intern here. I'm really just kind of like diving in, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing actually.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like I don't know, how do you
There's a
get
lot.
people inspired to want to do that here? You know?
And you got to look at what's been taken out from us. I mean, hate them or not, Acorn was the group that
Well,
helped
yeah.
to galvanize poor people and black people.
Right.
And that's exactly
Well,
why
that's
they
why they
became
were
such
doing
a
it.
hot
And they became
target.
demonized
That's
and
exactly
taken
right.
out.
And that's what
What is
happened.
Acorn?
That's a
Yeah.
strategy.
But
Yeah,
this,
right. Right now you
What is
say
Acorn? I don't know what it is.
what it is. What is it? You know, it's a vapor in the air
right.
that people are afraid to even say their name.
Right.
But
That's
there was
what
a sense at one point that they were actually making an impact, and they needed
They
to be
made
taken
an
out.
impact.
They did make an impact.
They took
yeah.
they made a decision to invade the Democratic Party. They took it to New York with delegates, created Jesse Jackson, created Barack Obama. I remember when Madeline Talbert, that lived here, moved to Chicago and said, "I'm going to organize Chicago." That was Madeline. I don't know if anybody know Madeline Talbot, but she's one of the most brilliant organizers I've ever seen in my life. She was an Acorn organizer. And she left Grand Rapids and said, "Paul, I'm moving to Chicago, and I'm going to organize Chicago."
So it does take leadership. And it
Yeah.
will take a paradigm shift, and it will take our legislators to feel the pressure.
It also takes
Of a voter.
initiative.
You
Well,
got to
of
have
course,
that
it takes
burning
initiative.
inside you
Yeah.
to do this stuff.
And part of it just becomes, you get to the point where you're just sick of the status quo, being lied to, all the BS that's being sold, and kind of flooding our airwaves and our mind waves and everything else.
Well, the end of the
Yeah.
American dream. People
Yeah.
don't have the opportunity. Equal opportunity is gone.
The idea
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're basically stuck in whatever little niche on the economic ladder you've been, fallen into, that's where you're staying, and it can only get worse,
Well, I'm more and more aware of corporate spin.
Yeah.
And I hear or read people's responses to things, or hear people saying something, and it's just that,
They've been
corporate
fed.
dollars,
Yeah,
corporate
yeah,
dollars.
Yeah.
But and people don't even realize that they're speaking corporate spin.
No,
Yeah,
right.
they
Even
don't.
even the idea that it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference. That's a corporate spin that you've internalized.
Right.
I mean, there's
Exactly.
a life-giving vitality just to being engaged in the struggle. Even if you don't live to see the
Yeah,
struggle
yeah.
triumph, you're still swimming upstream, so to
Yeah,
speak, and
yeah.
you're still engaging with people like we are tonight, saying, "Okay, well, we're not going to give up. We're not going to just check out and let the world go to wearing a handbasket. We're going to keep pushing and seeing what we can do." And that's kind of what our conversation's been here tonight. Right?
Yeah.
Well, when our coalition started, Michael was saying that people didn't know what move to amend what.
Right.
We got out on the streets to get a petition signed because we wanted to get on the ballot for Grand Rapids. And we talked to a lot of people. And then the following year, the people were telling us about Citizens United. They had no idea either what we were or what Citizens United was about. But the following year, when we were on the streets again, they knew what it was about.
Very educated. That's great. Well, this is probably a good time to start wrapping up this episode of IGE Talk. So I'm going to just kind of let anybody who wants to sort of make one last statement or plug a cause, endorse a website, just really quickly, let's just go around and just sort of last words that we want to say before we wrap things up. Okay.
Too, actually. Tonight, there's a telephone with Friends Committee on National Literature, and there's some, Paul, if you'll pick those up. And there's this, you guys know better than me, the author, yeah, that side. They're two-sided.
Oh, okay.
The authorization of for the use of military force. It's something that's in the House, and we need to put pressure on Amash, all of us.
Is this in Syria or where? I mean,
Well, it's in general. It's
just whatever.
Well, it's
It's on the back of the
using drones and stuff are
Okay.
go without any getting it done. So
Wow.
the idea is to end this authorization by the end of the year. It's going to
So
take
the
a while.
authorization is currently in effect, and this is an
Yes.
effort to repeal that or kind of draw it down.
Yeah, and it's in the House. It's all on here. And if you need,
Okay, so Adam Schiff, okay. So, these, this is an event, we'll throw a link up on the graphics on the screen here that people can check out for more information.
and the other thing is, one of our people from Grand Rapids came back, and she knew that David, how do you say his name?
Petraeus,
Yeah.
General Petraeus.
Was here in town, so she didn't know what to do, but she walked into the event, and she sat up and said, "You are lying."
Some civil disobedience, basically.
Yes.
And she did the same as the Representative Joe, or whatever his name was, from Obamagate.
You lied.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
lied.
yeah.
And she gets incarcerated?
And she gets
Yeah.
incarcerated.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I know he does it on national TV in the House of
Yeah,
Congress.
he's got congressional immunity or something like that.
I just wanted to, an
Go
announcement.
ahead, yes.
I've been following Congressman Conyers and that group on a bipartisan legislation that they put together to help fix the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, there's definitely some action
Yeah,
needed on
there's some
that.
action there, and hopefully we can try to get Congressman Conyers to come to
Right,
town.
this
and
was
talk about
the Voting Rights Act of
Yeah.
'65 that the Supreme Court
Yeah.
kind of gutted
It
last
was
summer.
strange that everybody's really strange that you got bipartisan cooperation on trying to fix it.
Well, I think there's
Really
that is a hot issue. I mean, this is one that could resonate with the average voter to say, are we really gonna, sort of condemn a portion of the population to have to stand in 6-hour voting lines or not have to vote at all, and show IDs if you're a 90-year-old grandmother who doesn't drive anymore. I mean, you really got to pull out your papers just to cast a vote. And all this nonsense that they're coming up with to disenfranchise a significant portion of people, primarily in urban areas and primarily the people of color. And it's very transparent.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. Who really wants to sign on to that other than the most fanatical?
Well, part of the reason I think it's bipartisan is because some of the Republicans are looking at the future. And they're seeing more black people and more Latino people, and they're going to be a minority.
Well,
And
yeah.
they're kicking and screaming
Right.
to
They're
not, fighting every
of the way.
step of the way, but the time is not on their side.
Right.
I got an announcement also. I was talking about Ella Baker. I just want to, Ella Baker and the Black Freedom Movement by Barbara Ramsey. I urge everyone who believes in free thinking and education, feminism, and wants to challenge traditional masculinity to check out this book that's really pretty good by Barbara Ramsey, who advocates for this unsung hero of human liberation and human rights.
Awesome. Nice plug, Bert. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Anybody else before I kind of sign up?
Where did it go? I've often said that, Move to Amend encourages its members not to get involved in partisan things.
Right.
And
good.
when we are speaking to someone passionate, who's passionate about their issue, we show them how the amendment would help them accomplish what it is that they want to
I
accomplish.
appreciate that, too,
And it
yeah.
isn't partisan. I think
Yeah, I think it's
most people realize from Occupy the Tea Party that money in politics is our problem.
And I think that's a great point. It's a nice one to end on because we've had some conversations along the Tea Party progressive rift, if you will, and I will continue to make the point. I've made it many times. Is that I think there is a connection if you go to the back end of that spectrum of truly representative democracy, whether you're coming from a strongly libertarian point of view or a strongly progressive or even what you want to call socialist point of view, there is a sense of, let the everyday people of this world and of this nation determine the course of our government. And I think that is a place where Tea Party and progressives can really join together in common cause. And then once we get kind of that level playing field, we'll have the battle of ideas and see which way we want to go as a society. So
Yeah.
I do encourage and endorse and then welcome people from that persuasion who might be watching to come on down and join us if you think we're slanted ideologically or politically. I mean, we have a pretty good dialogue here.
And we need millennials.
Yeah,
too.
oh yeah, young people as well.
The,
Oh, yeah.
the millennials are big enough. Excuse me,
Yeah,
they're big
people
enough
basically born from the late 1980s on.
until 37, 18 to 37-year-olds. They're the biggest group right now in America. Second, even larger than the baby boomers were. They're just
Charting the course
scrabbling
of our
by.
future, yeah.
They're scrabbling by. They're living with their parents. They're working 2 jobs. They don't see a future. They're not getting married. They're putting off having children because they don't see that they have the opportunity, the equal opportunity that was a promise is gone.
There's that, but I as being part of that age, we were challenging having children, and really challenging all our presumptions of what's good.
Well, yeah, and is this the time of life when you want to get into all that, or do you want to, do other things before that? So
But
yeah,
what's the cost if they don't get involved?
Yeah.
yeah. But certainly, I think millennial involvement in speaking up and helping steer the direction of our future is crucial, whether you're married and have kids or not.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go out to a close. So thank you for watching and listening in. We are IGE Talks, the Institute for Global Education, again at the southeast side of Grand Rapids. You can find us on the IGE Talks page. Just Google us if you want to look at some back episodes. We have a Facebook page, again, IGE Talks, where you can get some updates. We're going to try to ramp up that page a little bit with some more updates, bulletins, links of that sort. And, of course, Institute for Global Education, the local place if you're here in Grand Rapids. Come on by. We've got office hours during the week. You can get involved, meet cool people, check out our books and merchandise, and just kind of get into what we've got going on here. Of course, financial support is always welcome. This is a very homegrown organization. There's no big, deep pockets behind us, no corporate sugar daddies that make this happen. We've been scraping by for about 30, 40 years now. And we definitely appreciate every little contribution that our supporters and friends put on our way. So for that, I'm signing off. David Blakesley, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next March in 2014.
Thank you for the Common Ground Coffee.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
We're our
yeah.
sponsors. Coffee and goodies, definitely.